That's it. If you don't have a cable on port 3, don't worry about it. I just want you to follow the cables which are there in the switch port, and I want you to replace them and replicate them on the new switch. That's the idea behind this. If you have cables on all the ports, just mark them with a marker and give them the numbers, but especially 24 and 28 should be tagged with this particular tags because these are uplinks. Just to make sure these are uplinks. That's it. I hope I'm clear this point.
Yes.
Okay, sir. So I'll be moving on to the mounting part. So the mounting is not an easy task in this retail stores, what we have seen. So there'll be racks in some stores. Some of the stores are using just the reception desk. Some of them are just throwing the devices on the floor. So we are talking about the situation where we have racks here.
Yeah, sorry to cut you, Rajesh. Again, just go up. So Michael, David and team, if you see, we have divided the SOP into section wise. So section 1, section 2. So the expectation which we have talked about. So as soon as the day cutover starts, right, or the day like the cutover is, engineer will go on site. He will connect on the bridge, the common bridge which will be set up. On that bridge, once that activity initiate, right? So the communication will be like that. Okay, I'm on section 1, and then the section 1 once it is completed, field engineer will come and acknowledge, okay, section 1 has been done. I am going ahead with the section 2. Now, once the section 2, which is labeling, it is already clarified here. So all this labeling are done. Then again, he should come back on the bridge and then inform back to remote engineer. Okay, labeling has been done. Our device identification has been done. So now we will move on to the third section. Yeah, carry on, Rajesh.
A question on the bridge lines. How are we going to be getting that information? And if we're doing 6 cutovers in one day, are you going to have 6 separate bridge lines?
Yes.
And when and how will we get that information from you guys?
1 week before, like if the cutover is on Monday, so those bridges will be shared and scheduled by early by Wednesday or Thursday, previous week. So those bridges can be forwarded by you guys to the respective engineers. And the expectation from your end, at least to share us the field engineer details along with their name and contact number, so that on the day of cutover, if somehow we want to reach out to the field engineer, we can.
Okay. Thanks.
Welcome. Yeah, Rajesh, go ahead.
Okay, gentlemen. So we have completed section 2. That's the tagging part. Now we'll be moving on to mounting the devices. The reason why we have to unmount the devices and rack it, the reason is it will ease up our time to move the cables from the old device to the new device, because end of the day we are doing the same. We are going to do that activity, like moving the cables from the old D-Link to the new ones. So our preferred sequence is the 60F is the smallest box in the inventory, and we want this at the top. And we want the FortiGate switch at the bottom because that's the heaviest device and it can take as much weight as it can if the rack doesn't have railings or the rack support with the device. So this device can be as a base and it can support as many devices as it can. So we want the sequence, the FortiGate firewall on the top and FortiSwitch at the bottom.
So do you guys have a rack?
Most of the stores don't have it. We are seeing the racks only like 80% or 80% of the stores. 20% of the stores don't have the racks.
Okay, and so if they don't have the rack, then how are we mounting these and where are we putting these?
So as I said, these are retail stores. So most of them don't give priority to the networks. So most of them are using the reception desk. If we have just seen Firestone, they have the reception desk, right? So they're trying to put the devices underneath the desk. So that's one place we have seen them. And 10% of the stores are not even bothered. They are just putting it on the floor on the manager room. So We want to reuse the space which they have already allocated. We don't want us to bring a new rack and install them. Just want to reuse the space, whatever they have allocated for the device.
Holy cow. Is that the ice cream truck? Um, uh, can someone mute?
It's a Michael. I will mute him. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone, we're going to probably have to wait to see a couple of these, but I mean, there's going to be a lot of follow-on questions, whether it has a rack, doesn't have a rack, what's spec, how should we install them, do we stack them on top of each other, underneath the desk? I mean, there's just a lot of open questions there, and I don't know if I really can answer them until we get on a couple of these sites.
So, yeah, is the direction just wherever the existing equipment is, just stack the new equipment there if there's no rack?
Yes, sir. That's it.
Okay.
Okay.
Because this switch is a bulky device, we want it as a base and use the 40 switch on top of it so that we can see that these two devices are the same place.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. So, yeah, so we understand if there's a rack, the FortiGate will be at the bottom, and if there isn't a rack, we'll still put that on the bottom.
Mm-hmm. That's it. So as I said, just this is data part, so we are just using the switch and the FortiGate firewall. So this is going to be easy. Then we move on to section 4, which is the firewall staging and the phone cutovers. The main agenda of this section is we will start the cutover at this section. We will be taking down the data of the store. So these stores have three kinds of network segments. The first one is the terminals. Second one is credit card machines, and the third one are their phones. So they have three kinds of networks. So this Atron device is supporting the voice and the data now. So by doing this section 4, what we're going to do is we're going to transfer the data part from the Atron to the firewall, the new firewall. This is going to happen in section 4. Hope I'm making clear my point clear here.
Yes, that's the main cutover.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
And this is only the data cutover. So the voice is still going to be on Atron, and the data will be transferred over to the FortiGate. Then technically how we're going to do it is we're going to disconnect the WAN cable from Atron. So that will take down their data part. And I hope you have noticed this point. This is very critical for us. There is a critical point which I've highlighted. So that's a 4G wireless broadband device. It's a 4G router which will act as a backup for the site. So the first thing we have to do in section 4 is to cut off their failover, their backup. And that's how we tag the cable in the cabling in the tagging section D24C. This cable should be out in the first place. So before on the section 4, we have to take that device down. Then we have to cut down their main internet line. This will take down their total data and voice. Their phones are connected over this Amphenol connector. This port is responsible to carry out the phone lines physically. You see a port, you could see a tag of voice over here. So there's a 25-pin Amphenol connector on this port, which will be leading back to block 66. And from block 66, the endpoints like phones and analog devices are connected. So this piece is a layer 2 connection for the analog devices. And this piece is a layer 2 connectivity for the phones and the terminals and the terminals and the credit card machines. And this one is for the phones and all the analog devices. They have horns, they have alarms. Everything works on this connector, and their terminals and the credit cards work on this Ethernet ports. So once we disconnect this Ethernet cable and transfer it to 60F, so there is a small alignment here. So when we take it down, so we are trying to showcase that we're going to use a new cable here. So each and every site has a new Comcast WAN link delivered already. So this picture represents we're going to take down this WAN link and we're going to use the new Comcast modem WAN link on the FortiGate. And how we're going to do it is we're going to install that new WAN link on the WAN 1 port. And this USB part is from starting this week, we are trying out new ways. So we don't need this USB. I'll be updating this SOP. So I'll be taking out the USB part. So next thing is when you connect this WAN link, our firewall will come and register to one of our centralized clouds management. So from there, we're going to configure the firewall. That's the thing we're going to do for configuring the firewall. So by doing the firewall configuration, we will have the firewall up. And next, when we connect this AL1 port, which we tagged on the Atrin, to this guy, to the Fortinet port A, then we're going to switch on the Fortinet switch.
Okay, so move the cable, then turn it on.
Yes, we're going to move we have moved the WAN cable before. Now we are moving the LAN cable from the D-Link switch. We are taking the connection from the D-Link switch to the FortiGate.
Correct. And then power it on.
Yes, sir. That's it.
Always move the cable first and then power it on. Yep.
That's it. We're going to power it on. Then once the switch and the firewall is up, we'll start moving the cables as per the tags we have done. That's it. That will bring up their data part. Any doubts on this section? Do you guys want me to repeat this?
No, I mean, it's pretty much a 1-for-1.
Yes, sir.
And then on the bridge line, when we move all those existing to the new, who is someone on the bridge going to be managing that to make sure they all come up correctly?
Yes, sir. That's going to be my team.
Okay.
So once you connect the WAN link, they're going to see the firewall on the centralized cloud. As many devices are SD-WAN today, this is also an SD-WAN device. So it's going to report back to one of the centralized managers in the cloud. So once you connect your WAN link, I'll be able to see the firewall. Then once you connect the new switch and power it on, I'll be able to see it on the cloud. So my team will give a confirmation that this section is good. So once your team announces that the cable has been moved from the D-Link to the new switch and it has been powered on, they have to just wait for the confirmation and we'll give you a confirmation that it's good. And we are trying to use... Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, are you guys somehow, how are you managing all the IPs changing over to the new switch? I mean, how are you going to know if there's an IP issue anywhere once we're moving these over?
Yeah, so it's part of our script. So we have already collected the subnets related to the site. So the point where the firewall comes alive, we'll be pushing the script remotely, right? So we'll be pushing even the subnet details through the script.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure something was happening there or else we'd have major issues. So,
yeah, configuration part, everything is going to be owned by my team. So it's going to be done by my team. So at this section, once your firewall is live, then we are good. So at these situations, there may be some uncontrollable situations where the FortiGate WAN links are getting a private IP address. Means the service providers are treating them as an home internet connection and they try to give a 10. IP address. So in that situations, we will be not able to access the firewall even through the cloud because that's a private IP address. In that cases, we may need on-site help to connect the console to the firewall and so that we can just load the configs through that. So that's one of the situations we have seen. And I will try to document that part also on this SOP. That's the experience from past 2 weeks for us. So I'll update that as well.
So
Yeah,
if,
we're
so in
familiar.
that case, David, are we, when we console in, are they using TeamViewer to get through, or how are those configurations happening?
Okay, can I answer that?
Yeah, good question.
Yes, so the Fortinet console part, so you don't need a fancy, the old school Cisco cable to console into the FortiGate.
Sure.
You just need a Cat6 cable and a laptop and a team viewer so that I can control your computer and load the configs.
Okay, that's,
Yep.
yeah, that's, I was just curious if you guys, once our technicians is in through console, if you're going to you be using TeamViewer. So that answers the question. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah. So the problem is we don't have a pre-checks which can be done for the WAN link because we are not sure if the WAN link is a public IP or a private IP. So that's some issues with the service provider. So till we get to the point where we see the actual firewall, when we power up the firewall, we will not be able to make sure that it's a public or a private IP address. So we may need help of on-site tech when this private IP situations comes up.
Yep, understood. We're familiar with that. That's the reason I started asking the IP questions. So
Okay, sure. That's the only thing. And yeah, I was at this section. Yeah, once we move the cables, and there's an important piece I forgot about. There is a server at every store that's feeding in their credit cards. That's on port number 27. As you can see, there's a server tag. So we got to know a few days ago about this server. So each and every store will have a server, and that server will go on to port number 27. And that will be on port number 27 on the new switch and as well as on the old switch. That's the thing which going to feed their credit card machines and the terminals.
okay.
What brand of server is that?
We have seen mostly HP.
Okay.
That completes our cutover for the data part, sir. The next thing is the loading the APs. I mean, APs has to go into this ports from 15 to 22 as per our configurations. So mostly we are deploying 2 or 3 access point per store. We are not going more than that because these are like 9,000 or 10,000 square feet sites. They're not bigger than that. So we can use 15, 16 and 17 ports for them. So you can see the tagging over here on this color code on this page. This is entirely for the entire cutover, but we can use this as a reference or a legend for connecting the cables. But we already did the tagging on the D-Link part, so it'll be easy for the tech to just swap the cables from D-Link to new switch. If they pull out the cables from port 1, it should end up in port 1 of Fortinet. If they pulled out a cable of port 19, it should end up in port 19 of Fortinet. That's how it should be.
Okay.
It's just a plug out and plug in. There's nothing more than that on the cabling part. And then we are asking the techs to tag the power cables, new cables on the switch side. Whatever new devices we are installing here, we are trying to identify that this are the new devices. That's the reason for putting the labels on them. So if 15 and 16 for access points, so just tag the cables as AP. If there's a third access point, tag it as AP3, just for the new cables which you're trying to put in. I hope this cabling is done before the cutover, so maybe they will have a tag on them. So just try to reiterate that there's already tag on them matching this name, or if there is no tag, just put up a new tag with that name and put it out. And 24, port number 24, as I said already, this is an important one. So that's going to be my cradle point. So I want a tag of LT or CP on it. Port number 27, as I also mentioned, that's a server. That's a very important piece for the credit cards to work. I want a tag on port number 27. Okay, that's the tagging for each and every device. And the next part is the voice part. As I said already, just the data will be working by this part and the voice is still stuck onto Etrin. So we have to transfer the Etrin, means voice traffic to this through this new setup. So in order to do that, we have to run a new cable from Etrin's Ethernet 0/2, which was acting as a WAN link, and we have to connect it to the FortiGate's port 1. which is we will have a labels on the device, so we have to connect it to port 1. That's it. That's the main activity required by the tech. And the other piece is consoling into Atron. This is a pretty old device. It's already end of support, so that needs a serial to DB9 connector for Atron to console in. So we need on-site help here again with the help of TeamViewer. So he has to connect to something. This device will not have a console port. It will have something called a craft port. So we have to use the serial port on the Atron to connect back to the laptop. And what we have learned so far is this serial connection doesn't support Windows 11 OS. So it has to be below Windows 11. The on-site laptop should be below Windows 11. So once we connect the Ethernet cable and once we get the console, we will do the Atron part. And this is how it's connected. It's connected from the craft port and it's ending up in my computer. Then my tech will do some configurations on the Atron. After doing some configurations, the phones will start working. That's it. That's for the voice part. Any questions, guys?